I didn't want to watch this for a while. For whatever reason, no matter how much my sister pitched it, I couldn't bear to turn this noir thriller on. Now, I'm gonna stand up for myself here and say there's a valid reason that I didn't want to watch it. You see, I haven't watched a ton of black and white movies. I've got a few classics under my belt, but way too many to go before I start knocking off films that I've never heard of. I needed something to grab me that was more enticing than Humphrey Bogart and a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. Actually, when I say it out loud, I'm surprised I didn't cave earlier. The point is, Mara eventually wore me down, and we sat on the couch to watch In a Lonely Place. What came next was 90 minutes of suspicion, risky storytelling, and emotional disintegration, all tied up in the most satisfyingly shocking bow possible. For a guy who loves to see a movie with that feeling that something is off, guessing your way through each scene, In a Lonely Place is masterfully done in most aspects. At first, when it ended, I was taken aback. How had I not heard of this? This movie should have been a must-watch for film buffs that set the tone for thrillers of the future. I needed to know why this wasn't relevant back then or today. So, I hopped on a bus and went to the library to do some research. Really, I grabbed a bag of chips and sat on my bed with my laptop, but I prefer the library scene. What I found next was astounding. First, that eating chips in bed causes crumb problems during the night, and this film was completely ahead of its time. So much so that, like an old bottle of wine from a rundown vineyard, its presence today holds much more value than back then. In a Lonely Place released in 1950 and was seen by audiences as quite radical. Harrison's report in that year stated, "In a Lonely Place is a tense and somewhat morbid drama with a grimly realistic atmosphere that may not appeal to all audiences." It didn't have any other horrible reviews, or it could have, honestly, I don't know, it's really hard to find reviews from 1950. Harrison's report, though, pretty much summed up what the audience reaction was. It was not even close to a box office hit. According to historical accounts, the film struggled to find a wide audience, partly due to its dark and unconventional narrative. The film's focus on psychological drama and tragic romance, rather than a straightforward crime thriller, likely turned away many viewers. It's obvious that nowadays we can stomach a story that has a different vibe than the stated genre. But as I searched further into this library, and watched the movie a couple more times, I realized that the unease this movie portrays isn't the only reason it wasn't loved. First off, the director was fighting an uphill battle. Nicholas Ray had a complex relationship with the Hollywood studio system. His discontent was much reflected throughout this movie. Ray's main problem was the studio's prioritizing formulaic, audience-pleasing narratives. Doesn't that sound a little familiar? Plus, he was going through a divorce with Gloria Graham, so this guy probably hated his life during production. He decided to pour a lot of his frustration into the character of Dick Steele, and a couple lines here and there.
Had one because you've made and remade the same picture for the last 20 years. You know what you are? You're a popcorn salesman.
That's right, so are you. The only difference between us is that I don't fight it.
One day I'll surprise you and write something good.
I read that Bogart was upset with Hollywood at this point, and it was his company that produced this movie. So they seem to be setting out to go against their higher-ups. Doing something like this likely leads to failure because of the power dynamic. It's like my high school principal said to me in my senior year, "Don't bite the hand that feeds you." And that's exactly what Ray and Bogart did. As far as audiences back then go, it seems like they're more on Hollywood's side than we are today. Lines like the popcorn one were considered too blunt, too meta. Films back then were selling the fantasy of Hollywood, not exposing their inner workings. Now audiences can appreciate the window into 1950s movie politics. With the information we have today, it lets us relate to Dix on another level. I don't like how that sounds coming out of my... I think I might start going with Dixon. I did mention that audiences were shocked by the different methods of storytelling present, but what were the factors that created such a risky screenplay? It's pretty easy to see why this movie movie was individual with shit like this POV shot. Yeah, that tripped me out for a second. Or the vague characterization at the beginning. But as my sister knows, once you watch it enough times, you can see their storytelling is really more modern than movies back then. Gloria Graham's character Laurel is the best way to prove this claim. As the second female character introduced, her role grows from an intriguing side character to a full-blown surrogate. Just in case you're unfamiliar, a surrogate is a character that represents the audience's perspective. I'll be talking about that a lot here. For now, Laurel stays on the outside until Dixon Steele is questioned for murdering POV shot girl. She gets into the room, and as it stands now, we don't think Dix killed the girl, because we've been in his shoes the whole movie. Laurel, although she can't fully prove she didn't see anything, lies for Dix because he's attractive, I guess. Look, Laurel isn't crazy smart, but she already behaves different than a lot of the fictionalized women of the era. She is very bold and forward, doesn't hesitate to shoot back an insult or deny a kiss. This would have been a little different for people back in the 50s too. Women were supposed to be either virtuous or seductive, not have this level of dimensionality. The complexity continues as she starts to form into our surrogate. Laurel has layers on layers, and this has only gotten more common with female characters over time. Well, most female characters, but I already spent a video on that, so I'll move on. Dix, who isn't layered with much depth at the beginning, continues that sentiment. He feels cold and hard to understand, not the typical male main character of that age. Watching now, knowing that a lot of movies have you make assumptions about things, it feels natural. Furthermore, as we shift into Laurel starting to be the true main character, it only makes the story more engaging. Imagine back then, going to see Bogart as a lead for the first time in 6 years, and instead, you get a cold, scary, impossible to understand character that gets overshadowed by his much less decorated female co-star. I'm almost starting to understand these people. As the relationship between these two builds, the dynamic gets increasingly interesting. The more we question if Dix killed the POV shot girl, the more Laurel's story comes into focus. We get very important and sometimes intrusive conversations. These humanize Laurel and help us understand her perspective even more. As Laurel's unease around Dix starts to set in, we completely understand why. We become more and more aligned with just her. Like I said, she is taking lead in this movie, and not to mention in the relationship. She acts outside of his influence to seek information out when necessary. As her fear of Dix Steele grows, so does ours. It all builds to the moment where both the viewer and Laurel are convinced against all logic Dixon Steele did kill the POV shot girl. This is where the movie becomes perfect for audiences nowadays. As far as people in the past, there's a good chance you would have hated it now. The film takes us on a double date gone awry. When Dix drives off angrily with Laurel in the passenger seat, we see the face of a man who easily could kill. He almost runs a car off the road, and when he's insulted for his acts...
Well, you blind, knuckle-headed squirrel, don't you look where you're going? Take it easy. Take it easy.
Yeah, he doesn't let words like that slide. He beats this UCLA football star up and picks up a rock. As the tension is peaking, "Dix, you'll kill him," is the only thing that can pull him out of this trance. It's not over though. Dix drives off to a lonely place and puts his arm around Laurel's neck. This action was previously illustrated by Dix at a dinner party where he was showing how the POV shot girl could have been killed. Just as you think he's about to choke her out, he takes his hand away, and me and Laurel let out our breath. From this point on, it is fully Laurel's story. Right now, we think we're experiencing the opposite of dramatic irony with Bogart, and with Laurel, we are perfectly aligned. Somehow, Laurel has made us go against what we saw and think Bogart is the killer. As the plot unravels into Laurel's final arc, becoming isolated and afraid, the complexity became even more unbearable for old viewership. Luckily, today we can understand her slow descent into fear. It's not melodrama, it's earned. As tension builds towards the crescendo, Laurel is rapidly getting her affairs in order to leave Dix. Actually, affairs in order isn't the best way to say that. This isn't Casablanca. She's trying to make her escape, but Dix is doing everything to prevent that. It is very jarring watching his descent into madness trying to get into Laurel's house. Before the two get to fighting, the movie does something very special. It lets us know that Dix is not actually the killer. Earlier in the film, we're told about POV shot girl's boyfriend. At that moment, he was the obvious person of interest. But since we've seen so many red herrings in movies nowadays, there's no way it could be that obvious. I mean, his only alibi is backed up by his parents. I wonder if people in the 50s were not as cued in to manipulation in film and just knew that this guy was the killer the whole time, although that is just speculation. I'll admit, when it's revealed it's not Dix, I was a little disappointed. I wanted to see how he killed the girl. I felt a bit tricked and even taken advantage of by my sister, who knows my lack of noir film knowledge. While Dix and Laurel argued, I knew the phone would ring and save their relationship. Right? It has to ring as he's coming through the door, or ring just before he chokes Laurel on the bed. The further this altercation went on, the more it became clear there wasn't going to be a timely phone call. No fairy tale ending, no goodbye kiss or loving final line, just a broken look and an abrupt separation. As Dix hesitates before walking out of the shot, you're left with a bleak reflection. What could have been? Can you imagine being used to a satisfying ending and that shit goes down? You think I was surprised when the phone didn't ring earlier? Imagine them. The worst experience someone of the past could have had would be this. They know the whole movie that Bogart is not the killer, because he's played some good people in movies now, and it's not normal for the main character to be the killer. So then none of the tricks to get on Laurel's side work on them due to their conditioning. And when the characters on screen don't figure out the murder in time, wasting a relationship, the whole story could feel pointless. Nowadays, it gives you the opportunity to think about the ending much more. All the fake twists work to perfection and makes you ponder just how much a movie can manipulate you. Audiences of the past overwhelmingly agree this movie doesn't fit the mold of what they're used to. It seems like the people back then were similar to us now. When a movie is made that is extremely unique, it is met with bad box office sales and Marvel-brained criticism. Okay, I exclude the Marvel part. In a Lonely Place is a film that had to wait for its audience. What felt frustrating in 1950 now feels profound and fits in our time. It's weird how this film proves that sometimes the most timeless stories are the ones we weren't ready for. Or Hollywood just killed this movie on purpose because they don't like being shit-talked. I mean, just look at what execs have done to other movies that... And with that, thank you, Jerry. Specifically you, Jerry. And of course, to everyone else who watched this one, thank you. Man, just what a film this was. I did not expect to be nearly as engaged as I was when I was watching it, and it just left me with this unsettling feeling that I'm still thinking about now. There's actually so many more reasons why it's good that I just didn't even talk about as well. I kind of just wanted to have a different angle about how it aged, rather than a full-fledged review. I do quickly want to thank my sister, Mara, as well, for helping out with this. Put her LetterBoxd down there in the description. I'm very glad that she broke me down until I finally watched this movie. And I guess since I'm mentioning her, I have to mention the Fresh Out the Film podcast. It's on Spotify only. We get out of a movie, go in the car, immediately turn the mics on, so we'd love to have you guys there. But yeah, I think we're about done here. So deuces.
There never seems to be enough time.